I'm doing things a little different in this talk. Instead of telling you what self-care is and all the things you should do for self-care, I'm actually going to tell you what self-care is not and try to debunk some common self-care myths. Spoiler alert, self-care is not selfish, optional, one-size-fits-all, or all or nothing. Self-care is not selfish. Turning compassion inward does not corrupt it. In my humble opinion, there's nothing intrinsically selfish about facilitating your own wellness. I would venture to guess that most of you watching this video would agree that you're fans of compassion, so why can't we also be compassionate to ourselves? Now, could it be taken to the extreme and done in place of necessary things, overindulgent? Yes, absolutely. But can it also be done in a way that balances your other commitments and obligations? Yes, definitely. Like many things in life, the secret is balance and moderation, yin and yang. So don't overcorrect or overindulge, basking in your luxurious selfishness, but also don't run yourself into the ground and burn out. If I were to soothe a crying baby, it's unlikely that I would be judged. But likewise, it's okay to soothe ourselves, and sometimes we need that, and we can be our own most powerful ally. The classic announcement on the airplane analogy, right? It tells us to put on our own oxygen mask first before assisting other passengers. Why? Is it because they want you to be rude and inconsiderate in any emergency? No, because if you don't put on your own oxygen right away, you might pass out. And if you're unconscious, you won't be very helpful to little Timmy, will you? Notice also that the announcement doesn't say put on the oxygen mask of your kids, your spouse, your parents, your friends, your neighbors, and your employers before putting on your own mask. But neither does it say put on your own oxygen mask and then ignore everyone else around you who might need help. It's not a binary, it's a both and. You can care for yourselves and others, but sometimes we have to put our own self-care first so that we can effectively care for others. Two analogies here, both stemming from nature, which I think is a helpful compass for self-care. First is a fire. It gives warmth and light to others, like many of you watching this video do. But you have to add logs or it will quite literally burn out. That's why they call it burnout. And so you need to be kindling and renewing, replenishing that so that there are materials to help keep you burning brightly and letting your light shine. The other analogy I have here is a tree in winter. A tree spends all spring blossoming and summer with full leaves, and then at fall it drops all of their leaves. Not because the tree is selfish or lazy, but because it's a necessary part of the cycle. In winter, things appear dormant, but underground, there's regeneration and renewal happening quietly. We can't have spring without winter. Just as nature follows cycles, give yourself permission to not bloom 365 days out of the year. Now, I don't know about you, but when I go long periods neglecting myself, I end up looking a little bit like Grumpy Cat. And this is not exactly reminiscent of like this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine, right? The bonfire that we had before. And if I don't have any light to give, how will I bring light to others in my sphere of influence? Now, don't take my word for it, because if none of my fabulous analogies resonated with you, have no fear, I've got backup. And this is especially good if you're a rule follower and need permission. Here you go. In 2021, the NASW Code of Ethics put this in as an ethical mandate, meaning it's literally unethical to neglect yourself because it not only harms you, but it leads to negative consequences for the others in your life. It says that professional self-care is paramount to competent and ethical social work practice, that we have challenging professional demands, and that we need to maintain personal and professional health, safety, and integrity. And furthermore, that organizations, agencies, and educational institutions, are encouraged to promote organizational policies, practices, and materials, that support social workers' self-care. Check, doing that right now. Number 2, self-care is not optional. There are a lot of important skills to have in the social work sphere, But my dream is that you would not only have those base competencies in your area of expertise, but be able to thrive in all areas of your life. And self-care is a key ingredient to that. I have really fought to make sure that self-care is a real part of social work education curriculum, not as an afterthought, but as a key ingredient to being a successful leader in the social work sphere. Ultimately, it is not just a nice to have or a wish I could have it, it's necessary. And part of a practical strategy to help you with recognizing that is to shift yourself while you recognize that it's necessary to transition out of a judging feeling and into a more behavioral action oriented framing of things. So for my clinicians in the house, we know cognitive distortions can mess you up, so don't should on yourself. Take off your judgy pants and just make it happen, my friend. So judgment sounds like I should, I need to, or I still haven't. Whereas an action is I plan to, I will, or I'm excited to. Now, if you really for real can't make it happen today, you can have grace for yourself, but make a plan for tomorrow and stick with it. Self-care is not one size fits all. You do you, boo. There are technically empirical definitions and conceptualizations of self-care, but guess what? You also get to make it whatever the heck you want for your own practice. So what sparks joy for you? What experiences meet you at your intersection of I like and I can? Let me say that again. What experiences meet you at the intersection of I like and I can? And this is fluid, of course. What you can do and want to do may be different from day to day and certainly will evolve year to year. For example, maybe you loved reading a lot and now you're in school again and reading is not as life-giving. It's okay. It's time to pivot and continue exploring yourself and what's most meaningful to you today. I hope by this point in your life you have enough experience and self-awareness to know what feeds your soul. But remember, it's not just about what you need, but also maybe how you can lead and influence others towards self-care. I actually made this graphic through AI, and I asked it to make a self-care collage. And I thought it was funny that this original iteration gave me 2 different drinking memes. And I almost changed it, but then I realized it was actually a good point to make. What's better for you? Drinking with friends, drinking alone, or abstaining from drinking, right? Of course, we have different triggers, experiences, needs, and preferences, values, all of that. And so what works for me in self-care might not work for you and vice versa, and that's okay. It's very individualized. It's also not all or nothing. It's a daily spectrum. So shout out to my CBT therapists in the room. It's not that you are a complete, enlightened Zen monk, meditating, like levitating as you float in the forest, in lotus pose. That's not the only way to achieve self-care. It's a spectrum between that and, oh my gosh, I feel like my life is hot garbage, right? And likely all of us are somewhere in between that spectrum, and that might move day to day or year to year. But there's not this binary of you're either completely tranquil or you're frazzled and chaotic. You don't have to be scrambling or indulging in luxury and laziness or enlightenment, right? And you don't have to transform overnight. I invite you to get curious about whether you can make your day just 5% more wellness-oriented. Can you take a 5-minute stretch break during an online meeting when you're not on camera? Can you walk in nature while you chat on the phone with your mom? Can you do a devotional as a family? Things that don't take a lot of time but might make meaningful progress towards your own individual goals, values, and priorities, whatever those are. And if so far you've been not doing much, great news, because that means you can only go up from here. Today is not yesterday, and tomorrow is coming. So it's never too late to start with just one small step. And just because you can't afford a facial or don't have time to go away for a weekend yoga retreat doesn't mean that you can't have any self-care. You might not be able to do everything, but you can do something. And if you prioritize it, you can make it work even a little bit. So remembering that you don't have to be, an enlightened figure or a hot mess express. We're all kind of somewhere in the middle. So start ridiculously small and go from there and just inch your way up the spectrum as much as you can. So baby steps are steps. Practice makes progress, and any step is progress. It's like Burger King, you can have it your way. Self-care is expansive enough that you can DIY. It's BYOSC, bring your own self-care to the table. And there's nothing noble in suffering to the point of burnout. Self-care means personal sustainability. Someone who turns up their nose at your self-care, you just tell them to take off their judgy pants and go look up the code of ethics, because it says that we need to engage in self-care. So let's shift from saying, oh, that must be nice, I wish, not for me. No, ma'am, it will be nice when you do it and when you make time for it, because we do the things that we prioritize and make time for. This is not a suggestion, it is an order. So let's make like social workers, be ethical, and engage in our own self-care, and also role model and lead it for others to do the same. So together we can shift the culture to make self-care a more normal and accepted part of our days.